Yeah, go for it.
Perfect. Wednesday night here in Dubai, 9:45 for me, almost past my bedtime, but probably most of my guys who watch this are back in the UK. So hope you've all enjoyed your dinner and you're ready to sit down and listen to me and my amazing guest tonight, Mr. Niall Ratcliffe. Welcome to the live stream, Niall. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Matt, and pleasure to be here. So appreciate you having me on.
Listen, I obviously you and I were talking a bit off camera, but just to set the scene for everybody listening, Niall and I have actually just met tonight. But I am an avid follower of his weekly newsletter. I subscribe to a lot of people's newsletters, but there's only 3 or 4 that really, I guess, really stick in my inbox as a regular without fail read. And yours is one of them. So I was very excited when Niall replied to my email to say, "Come on and have a chat with us." He owns what he describes as a story-based marketing agency back in the UK, which he co-founded with his brother. And I just think he's a great marketeer, a great advertiser. And I'm saying all these things about you not knowing you, but the assumptions I make from your newsletter, love to read, love to study, and I think you're a young lad in a big boys game doing a good job. So like I say, looking forward to picking your brains, and I'm sure everybody who listens is going to benefit from this as well. So thanks again.
Yeah, I guess. I appreciate it.
Tell me what you mean by story-based marketing agency.
Yeah, well, essentially, when we first got started out in the business, we didn't actually call ourselves a story-driven marketing agency. We were more so just like a general marketing agency. And then we realized as we started to take on more and more clients, there was 2 sections of the style of things we were doing. And this was across email, LinkedIn that we were doing for clients as well. And every time we put out story-focused content, so that could be talking about your founder story. How did you go from where you were as a kid to being a founder and starting a business? It could be a client case study story where it's talking about how you helped the client. Those were all pieces of content, whether it was an email or LinkedIn post that actually did well and were performing better, driving engagement, but more so driving lead gen for our clients. And then we had this other style, which is, I think, pushed more online, which is like, here's my 3-step framework for this. Here's my 6-step whatever for something else. And those kind of, what I would say like cardboard engagement, where it was like people would say like love this, but like it was dry, like there wasn't any thought behind it. No one remembered those kinds of posts. Instead, they were just kind of dropping a like on it. It wasn't really working. So we said, well, if 50% of the content we're writing isn't working, whether it's emails aren't getting replies, LinkedIn posts aren't getting in leads in, why don't we just do the 50% that is working? That's when we narrowed ourselves down to story-driven marketing, and now we focus on helping people stand out and land clients through their story. Through our RB story system, which is essentially from LinkedIn to lead magnets to emails to a close at the end, which is almost like a basic marketing funnel with story dripped through it.
So look, I know you don't know too much about me, but for let's say using me as your example from I guess from what I've told you a bit and what you already know, how would you market me then as a story based as a story based client, just to put a bit of context on this for people?
Yeah, so great question. So the first thing I would be focusing for you is I'd go to LinkedIn, we'd get you on LinkedIn, and I'd be telling like the classic stories, as I would call them. So one is like your origin story. How did you first get into business? I'd tell the come up story. How did you go from wherever you were as a kid? Like, what is that big come up story? What's that big transformation that you went through to become the business owner you are today? And I'd also be talking about the downfalls that you've had. Like, what are the downfalls you had? And how did you come back from? What did you learn from them? And just those 3 alone, everyone would have this great picture of one, who Matt is, what are his morals, what does he like to do, who is he as a person, is he credible, is he trustworthy? And as I kind of say those buzzwords, you start to realize just from a couple of stories, you can immediately paint this picture of someone of like, would I want to work with them or not? Are they credible? Are they trustworthy? They're the key ones. Okay, yes, I've heard his story. He's done a lot of credible things. He's probably credible. And 2, he's actually super honest, being vulnerable, and he's admitted some mistakes he's made, probably trustworthy. And those 2 things alone are really valuable. And that's when off the back, when I'd start to get people in who saw you as credible and saw you as trustworthy, I'd start the second part of our system, which is launching lead magnets and getting people to email. But that'd be my first step, Matt, if we were working with you today.
And at what point does that story change? And I don't mean like, when do you start lying? But I guess what I mean is we talk about my story. Obviously, successful young business owner, big bankruptcy, built back from nothing. Let's say they're the three simple parts of the story. I mean, you can't presumably tell that same story for 10 years, can you? Or I mean, maybe you can to new clients, but what about the people who you already wheel in?
It's a great question again. And that's where I come. I think it's Gary Vee who said, document, don't create. And that's why I think a lot of people fall into the trap of being like, I'm going to post 5 times a week. And next minute they're cranking out some boring content that no one wants to see on the feed. It's like, here's my 3-step this for this. So it's like, everyone should do this. And it's like always like boring and preachy. But instead, I would just focus on like, what are you doing day to day, week to week, month to month that is a story in it. So for example, one of our clients has just had a kid. And we're talking about like, how is he managing his business whilst having a kid? For me, it's like we just hired a team member. Like, what am I doing right now? Talking these current stories. Like, we just hired a team member. What am I learning? I'm only 22. I'm managing a team of 13. Like, what is that like? What am I doing? On Monday, I posted my 3 non-negotiables for the weekend. But rather than just saying like my 3 non-negotiables for the weekend, this, and this, I said my 3 non-negotiables for the weekend, this. And I said 2 years ago, here's how I was. We just started the company. I was dreading Mondays. I was stressed. I had a boatload of things to do. It was a bit of a nightmare. To today, 2 years later, when actually I've do these non-negotiables over the weekend, I'm actually in a better position. And that's a really key fact there is having the contrast. You don't have to tell the exact same story again, but pick a moment from your life and contrast it every day. So for example, for you now, Matt, you're on this call, it's late at night, you're getting to network, you're getting to chat with another business owner. But 15 years ago, you might have dreamed of jumping on a call and being able to chat with another business owner. That's a really simple thing is you can contrast those times and tell that story of the transformation that you've been through just purely off those 2 time frames.
I think an important thing you said as well there for me was you mentioned vulnerability, and you mentioned the mistakes you've made. Like being vulnerable and talking about your mistakes. Yeah. And I think you come from a generation of living in the open, living on social media, documenting and being transparent about everything. I subscribe to it, and I've always been very open about my things. I think I don't have an ego, and I don't really care what people think about whether I've done something right or wrong. But I very much come from an era, and certainly the people, let's say 5 and 10 years older than me, who are still young enough to wanting to be building a branding business, but they come from such a secretive, let's say that the whole mindset, the whole viewpoint back then was under the radar. Don't tell anyone what you're doing. I mean, I still remember conversations with people. I mean, even nowadays, sometimes when you ask them about the business, and I'm not being nosy about their finances, but I'll say, how big is that company, or what do you make, or what's your turnover? It's like, well, I'm not telling you. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll jump on Company's House and find out in 3 seconds. Like, I'm not asking you for for Colonel Sanders' secret recipe here. These are all reasonably simple things. But I think people, the older generation, naturally come from that real perspective. That's the wrong word, but I'm trying to think quickly. Real desire to be secretive about everything, and I think it makes it obviously then very difficult to to create story, to create brand, and to build trust. Because I think when you try and create that perception of never making a mistake, of the fact that you're utterly invincible. I mean, not only is it not believable, it's also it's not very warming when that person looks totally unattainable. I think if you look at a business owner if a business owner's made 5 or 10 million quid, on the one hand they're uber successful, at the same time they can tell you why they've fucked up and not made 20, 50, 100, and it makes them more real and relatable. And I think people can think, I can actually do what he's done, because he has got some chinks in his armor after all.
Yeah, and I think if you look right now, probably the most popular, especially in the UK, business owner or business influencer nowadays, it's Stephen Bartlett. And whether you like him or not, or whether, I know there's some controversy at the end of last year, I think one of the reasons he is so successful is because he is that vulnerable character who opens up about who he is, the mistakes he's made, and he's very honest and trustworthy. And one of our most successful clients, who made hundreds of thousands with us, is an older founder, and like you said, a lot of people are closed off, plus 50. They're the classic people, and probably our average age of our roster of clients is probably 40 plus founders. Probably, I'd say average age, probably like 50, 55. Which is surprising for some. But yeah, one of the more successful clients, he's super honest and vulnerable about his experience as a man, and he talks about some things, I don't want to give it away, but like some things that I suppose most men that make him maybe don't seem so strong as a man, but it's those simple things that we really ease out of him and helped him admit that people trust him so much as a business owner when he does give that really credible advice. And so it's definitely key nowadays. And I think people expect it. It's almost more of like it's not a gain, but it's a negative if you don't at least open up in some regard and show those chinks in your armor.
Tell me, obviously, as a business owner who does this for people, you're obviously going to err on the side of saying you should be getting someone to do this for you as opposed to do it for yourself. But where do you think the balance sits between outsourcing the resource so you can concentrate on what you do and still having a hand in your personal brand? And just, I guess, just to add a bit more context or flavour to that, I always say to people that for me, the clue of personal brand is in the word, personal, and that you have to have. Yes, I'm not saying you should be sat doing all your own posting, but you've got to have a massive hand in it in some way, shape, or form. I think maybe if you've never done anything, you should probably start doing it yourself before you look at outsourcing it, because ultimately, and I've made this mistake, and I've had people write content for me that I've had nothing to do with, and when it gets posted, I look at it and I cringe. I think, fuck, those quotes that they've said, they've put from me, I would never say. The way they've done that and said, Matt's thoughts are this. I'm thinking they're not my thoughts, and anyone who knows me will actually laugh at me. Okay, fine. If you don't know me, it might sound plausible. It might work for a lead magnet, but ultimately, if something's going to be sustainable, it's got to be authentic, and I would cringe at that stuff. But and I sometimes will very often read posts someone will put on LinkedIn. I mean, Samuel Leeds, for example. I'm not trying to pick on someone here, and so I apologise, Samuel. But I look at the content he writes, which is all, and the message is all great. But I can tell 100% that the way that post was written by an external professional copywriter. It doesn't feel like Samuel sat on the toilet, bashing out a quick LinkedIn post while he's doing a number two. How do you work with a client, and would you agree or disagree with what I've just said?
Yeah, I honestly think you're bang on, and that's why I always drill into our team's head is that we aren't copywriters, we're impersonators. And I literally just put a message in the chat earlier in our Slack channel to the team, and I was saying that, like, I think one thing that a lot of people get wrong, especially when they're writing for people, it's very different in this new of, like, you're not writing for the company, which is easy, you just embody the company brand. You're writing as a person, which is a slightly different dynamic to what's usual. But I always say, like, why would that person post this today? And I don't want any content going out that you couldn't imagine the client actually posting themselves. But a really simple way we get around this is when we do an onboarding call, it's about an hour long, very similar to this, like a podcast style. And we'll literally just ask them their life story, and we'll dig deep into it. We'll say, like, why did you do this? What did you learn from this? And that way, rather than us trying to think up these random messages and put out these random quotes, what we're actually doing is pulling a story they've told us and just reformatting and aligning it with something that will work for LinkedIn. Which always works really well. And then again, we work on a prompt basis with clients. We'll prompt them for stuff. So whereas, like you were saying about the copywriter just cranking out a message for someone, instead we'll send you a text or on Slack or WhatsApp, and we'll say, look, we want to do this post on your time when you went bankrupt. What do you think the cause of that was for you, and what was the biggest change you made after it? You send us a voice note back, I think it was this, isn't this? 45 seconds later, boom, that piece of content has gone out, and it was your thought that all you've had to do is send a voice note. We've translated it into a way that'll work for the platform we're posting it on. We've gone ahead and scheduled, and everything else is done for you. And that way, it's your message in the right way. You mentioned, people should go and post themselves first. I actually think that's a great idea. The problem is just most CEOs just don't have time or won't do it at all. And that is.
But you know what? And sorry to interrupt you. I agree they won't do it. But when people say they won't have time, and I always used to moan at my in-house social media team when it used to be a bit bigger. I'll say that that they spend hours and hours, if not days, planning and scripting this stuff that's ultimately crap and gets no engagement. I say, I'm running businesses all across the world, sleeping 3 minutes a day. Yeah, I manage to get 3 or 4 posts a day out because I do it in the back of a taxi. I do it while I'm having a poo in the morning, whatever it is. And I think people always, think I'm saying that for effect or to sound funny or whatever. Obviously, I say it with a humorous tone on, but it really is true. I'll sit down for 5 minutes, and instead of going on WhatsApp or instead of playing Tetris, I'll smash out a little post or do a picture, whatever it may be. I think people really can find the time if they wanted to, but I would agree with you that yes, they'll find an excuse not to, and you're right, they won't do it if they had to do it themselves.
Yeah, and I think there's this barrier, right, of like, the problem is, like, no one will sit down and just crank out a post because it feels like a big hurdle to get over if you haven't done it before. Like, it feels like, oh, I'm going to post, like, is it going to look bad for my brand? Is there going to be spelling errors in it? They're going to look really bad on me. And, little things like that, like, I feel like, especially, the irony is if you look at most companies' socials, they'll crank out whatever because it's not them. They don't feel it's personal attachment. The second you say, I'm going to post it on your personal LinkedIn profile, it's like, whoa, wait a second here. Like, how is this going to sound? Can we double check that? Is this the right word? And it's funny how people do really prioritize that personal brand or more picky over the personal brand than they are the company brand simply because it's their name tied to it.
What kind of quantum of content do you recommend people do, or do you do for your clients? I mean, I guess I assume it depends on how much they're paying you. If they pay you more, they get more content. But I mean, what's the minimum to make it actually scratch the surface of what people will achieve, and what's the optimum quantity?
Yeah, so a lot of people will say like every day. We'll say post every day, and I think that's not a bad idea. But I actually think that a lot of the time people post every day, the quality really goes down. And you can say, well, no, I'm going to keep the quality high all 7 days a week. Jesus Christ, I do this for a living, and to try and think of something interesting to post genuinely interesting, something that you would stop and read, not ticks the box, that you genuinely stop and read for 7 days a week. It is very, very, very tough, especially if you're not doing a lot and don't have a whole team around you. Who's like Gary Vee can do that. Do you know why? Because Gary Vee's got a full-time videographer who follows him everywhere, crops it up, boom, everything that he's doing is interesting. But for other people, I think that's really, really tough. So personally, I'd say the minimum, and actually probably the average of what you should do is just 3 times a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever works for you. I think that's the greatest split because you can put out 3 really great pieces of content that actually resonate, actually get remembered, and you can stay top of mind enough. The frequency is high enough that you can stay top of mind without filtering everything out with just shite content that no one actually wants to listen to. So 3 a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is what I would start with for sure.
And what would constitute a great piece of content? I mean, it sounds like we're talking about more than a picture of someone in the gym saying, yes, smashed it this morning. I mean, are we talking about paragraphs and paragraphs of thought leadership?
I wouldn't even say the length. I would say like resonance is something that I would look for. And what I mean by that is like, back in the advertising day, I was recently reading All Over Advertising, which is a great book. And all the way through, it talks about recall tests that they're doing in the ad world. So they'll play 5, 6 ads, and they'll go, oh, that ad on for this company, can you tell me about it? And they see if they can recall. Did it stick in your memory? And that is what I would kind of grade your content on. Like literally, you could do it yourself. Like go and get someone to read a piece of post for you, like your kid, your cousin, whoever it is, and be like, can you just tell me like what did I say in that post? Because that's what you're looking for. Like, will they actually remember it once they scroll on to the next one? At the end of the day, so a couple of really simple things to kind of make sure it does get recalled and it does have that resonance is just one, does it have a powerful message that'll stick with someone? That's generally the last line of the post. A great quote, I think I heard Morgan Housel say it. It's authors don't write books. Great authors don't write books. They write one line that gets remembered. And what he kind of means by that is like, I read a bunch of books, but if you ask me to tell you 99% of what happened in them, I don't know, but I can tell you 5 lines from All Over Advertising. I can tell you about the recall test. I can tell you that he hates reverse type. Maybe like one other thing from that book. And it's those simple sentences that actually made his book successful because they're what remembered. And the same goes for your content. But the second thing I'd say is like really, I think Matthew Dix, who wrote Storyworthy, calls them 5-second moments. And it's essentially like, what's the 5-second moment that changed you? And really focus on that in the post. So like a lot of people will write these long paragraphs and there'll just be a detailed description of how we went from A to B to C. That's a timeline, not like a powerful story that'll resonate. So find a 5-second moment where you transform. The moment for you, Matt, where you looked at the bank balance, or you got the email and it was like, I've gone bankrupt. Like, what were you feeling in that moment? Or the moment that you were back, when you kind of sat there and had that realization, like, I'm back, I've done it, I've rebuilt my career. That's the moment that you want to land on, and that's the moment that people will remember. And it's those types of content. I wouldn't focus on length. I wouldn't try and focus on making a thought leader. I try and focus on that one line. Actually, people remember that one message. People remember.
What platforms do you work on for people? I mean, is that like a budgetary thing that if someone's got the resource, it should be on every platform, but for a limited resource, that they should pick one and just kill it hard?
Yeah, so we do LinkedIn, and we actually have, I think we have one client who we post on Twitter from an old package. A lot of people do say post on every platform, or I heard, I think, I can't remember what book it was in. It was like, you should be on 4 places. People should see you in 4 places. And I think that's a great idea. But like, for me, the people I want to talk to are like heads of, executives, and business owners. Are they on Instagram? Yeah, but do they want to see me on Instagram? Probably not. Are they on TikTok? Maybe. Do they want to see me on TikTok? Probably not. Are they on Twitter? Maybe. But again, I have Twitter. I'm a huge UFC fan. I go on Twitter to see UFC news. I don't go on to see business advice or lessons or business stories. But on LinkedIn, I am almost in work mode when I'm on LinkedIn. I'm thinking about work. I'm in work. And so that's why we only focus on LinkedIn. It's the place where our people we want to talk to are. So why would you waste your time trying to post content and match it to each other platform when literally the people you want to talk to are on LinkedIn? Like, they're thinking about work when they're on it. So if you want to talk about work, talk about it on LinkedIn.
What about newsletters? Obviously, that's how you and I came to meet today. That they are a massive thing now. I mean, what's and obviously you've got a great one. I mean, do you think they're good for finding new clients? Do you think they're good for maintaining existing relationships, or all of the above?
Yes, it's the latter part of that in terms of, I see it as more of, a lot of people will see like a newsletter, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever. For me, it's LinkedIn. We have lead magnets to get the emails, and then emails, newsletters, and then you can do like sales email if you want to convert. But it's more for deepening the relationship. Not going to go on too much of a tangent, but a lot of people think of marketing horizontally. It's like they'll nail LinkedIn and they'll be like, next Instagram, next TikTok, next YouTube. And can you see how it's like all just brand awareness? Like, it's all horizontal of like, people find you on Instagram, people find you on LinkedIn, people find you on Twitter. But what I want to do is like, LinkedIn nailed. I want to go vertical. LinkedIn, I'm going to deepen the relationship. I'm not going to get more people to see me on that top level. I'm going to deepen the relationship with the people I want to talk to. So to go to a newsletter. And now they're not seeing a 150-word piece on LinkedIn. They're seeing a 1,500-word piece in the newsletter. Those who care about me more, the ones who read the most, can now go deeper down into the world of Niall Ratcliffe or the world of our company and actually get a deeper dive into that. And that is when you have people at kind of that bottom end of the funnel who are no longer just someone who sees you on LinkedIn from time to time, someone who's actually digesting your content over a long period of time and like committing hours of their life to it. So yeah, I love newsletters. I think they're an amazing piece of a marketing funnel, but I do think people need to understand that they deepen the relationship. It's not horizontal. It shouldn't be horizontal.
We've got a question from one of our viewers, and a little hello to you, Chantal. Thanks for listening. But yeah, Nicola has asked us, or asked you, presumably, what if your business model is based around B2B and B2C? I assume that is an emphasised and, as in B2B and B2C. What do you do then? I mean, I would assume it's that we're talking LinkedIn for a B2B platform, and you would apply the same theory on a B2C platform, i.e. something like a Facebook or an Instagram, but still applying the same personal storytelling content that resonates.
Yeah, so firstly, bang on that. What I would say is, like, for B2B, okay, where is that audience LinkedIn? Okay, so like that's what we do, bread and butter, LinkedIn. But then for B2C, it's more of a deeper question of like, where are those people hanging out? That could be on Reddit, that could be on TikTok, that could be on Instagram. But it's really knowing your customers and being like, okay, where do they hang out for the information you're giving out? I think people forget. Yes, great. People have, my partner is on Instagram, TikTok, all the other things that a female can download nowadays, Pinterest. But like, she's on there for different things. She's on Pinterest, maybe like fashion or I don't know, interior design. So if you're an interior design company, Pinterest is the place to be. And that goes for each platform. It might be YouTube that you want to be on. It's a case of like, what platforms are they on when they want to consume content that you're creating, and then applying the same storytelling principles to that platform. That might be video formatting and scripting the story, getting it edited, blah, blah, blah. But you're finding out where they actually hang out for the content that you're putting out, and then adapting the principles for those platforms. That's what I would go with.
And tell me, obviously, you mentioned to me before we came on that you started your business as soon as you finished uni. What did you study at uni? Was that marketing or something? Marketing?
Yeah. Ironically, my brother has bachelor's in finance and a bachelor's in economics and a master's in finance. And at the time we started the company, he was working at a large bank in the UK as an analyst. And I had started as an economics major and transitioned into marketing. So yeah, we were studying marketing at the time and Morgan Finance. It's ironic that they both kind of balance off nicely in terms of operation.
So, and I guess I'm asking the question to set up the next, really, which is it's obviously very topical nowadays to talk about whether or not people should go to uni. Does it help move you forward? Is it a waste of cash? And yes, for some careers it's absolutely essential. For others it's more questionable. I'm curious what you learned in a marketing degree that has helped you in your marketing business now. And again, a bit of extra context for that. I mean, I was with a couple of my team members the other day. I just recruited someone new as a head of SEO role, and she's probably in her early to mid 30s. She'd done a marketing degree at uni, and was telling me that she only had one module in the entire degree that was about digital marketing, which, when you put that into the context of today, is a slight concern, given that there probably isn't really anything outside of digital marketing nowadays. And as a youngster yourself who's just finished uni, just done marketing, and now practicing it as a business, how helpful was that for you? And what would your advice be to someone seeking a career in a marketing based role?
Yeah, I think that I'm not sure she doesn't listen to this, but one of my marketing professors was called Dawn at university, and she was a really lovely lady. And her husband worked at the bank in town, but she wasn't up to date with marketing. She was probably 10 years off what was happening in marketing. She was telling us the 4 Ps and a bunch of other stuff, and I can't remember anything else that she taught us. And some people would say, well, don't go to uni then. You learn nothing about marketing, don't bother going to uni. But I think understand what you're going to uni for. And I actually think that I spent 3.5 years, whatever it was, like just learning life, like just learning how to communicate with people, seeing different things. So I went to university in America, and the greatest experience I learned in uni was seeing what was possible. One of my best friends, his dad was a partner in charge at a law firm, and he just had 100 times the wealth that my parents even could think of having. And I just got to see, that's possible. He's actually a normal guy as well. And seeing kids drive Jeeps and BMWs, and it's like, okay, there's a lot more possible to the world. And I think that the great thing about uni is that you just get out of your hometown and you can just kind of experience life and see what's possible. And like, get good grades, because it's why not get good grades at university, especially in marketing. I think it's particularly easy. So get good grades, but understand your intentions for going, and actually just like learn the soft skills that are now essential that I wouldn't have had if I went to uni, like communication, understanding how to talk to different people, and all those other soft skills of like communication and people that you can't get if you don't go to uni. I don't think it's tougher to get.
Well, listen, Niall, it has been a pleasure having you here, buddy. 27 power minutes, where I think anyone who's listened to this or listens to this over the coming weeks when we put it out on the Matt Haycox Daily Podcast, will learn more in these 27 minutes, and I'm sure 27 months of an old school marketing degree can teach them. I'm going to ask you to give yourself a little shout out in a minute as to where people can find you if they want to interact and talk about you doing some story based marketing for them. But I've got to ask you before you go as well for your top 3 book recommendations. One thing I always like in your newsletter is when you take a book and you've just read it and you dissect it for the main bits. And I know you've got some old school classics in there and some modern day wonders. Anyone who wants 3 top marketing books to read on the beach, what would you recommend?
Yeah, the first one is Ogilvy on Advertising. In fact, this is not set up.
I knew that was coming.
I have it on my desk right here, and I fold the bottoms of pages when I find something that I think I want to remember. And if you can see here, if I hold it up in the camera, like all of this is just folded, because there's so many gems in here. Especially if you run a marketing agency, Ogilvy on Advertising is the gospel. A couple other great books that probably people don't know. Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley. I'm a huge fan of that book. Daniel's great, and I think it's just like simple advice that applies to the modern day that people really overlook. So I'd definitely say oversubscribed. And for a third book, there's a couple that I want to mention. How to Win Friends and Influence People isn't marketing based, but a fantastic book that I think is been great business wise. And the last one I will say is probably another tangent as well, but it's called Hey Whipple, Squeeze This, and it's an advertising book that I've just finished literally a couple of nights ago. And I think it's not fantastic for the advice it gives you, but it shows you the different types of marketing and advertising that you can do. I think you get trapped in a world sometimes of only consuming certain people's content, and it's important to kind of see what else is out there in terms of what did people do in the 80s, 90s, the 2000s, what people are doing right now, out of home advertising, digital advertising. So Hey Whipple, Squeeze This. But more so, I'd actually go and say you should check out Harry Dry, marketingexamples.com. He also has fantastic stuff. He doesn't have a book out, unfortunately. If he did, I'd buy it in a second. But that's also a fantastic resource.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Niall. And like I said, just tell us where we can find you if people want to come and talk about hiring you or follow some of your content.
Yeah, just go to LinkedIn, Niall Ratcliffe, NIALL. And you'll find me there and everything else on there. You can also find us at ratcliffebrothers.com, but that's all on my LinkedIn. So if you go there, you'll find anything you want, the newsletter, resources, and my content there as well.
Awesome. Well, we'll put something in the show notes, and I'll make sure we give you a little shout out on my newsletter as well when that goes out next week. Listen, Niall, thanks a lot, buddy. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to speaking to you and knowing you more in the future. And you told me before we came on camera that you don't network enough, and that is something I'm going to punish you for and help you with, because it is my specialist skill, and I will exchange your marketing knowledge for my networking knowledge. So I'll look forward to speaking again, buddy.
100%. Appreciate it, Matt.
All right, mate.